Hi, this is Paul Green, and welcome to Martial Logic, Episode 3, How to Stop a Time Bomb. I may start and stop this one a couple of times. It's kind of late at night, and I've been having some software problems, so sorry about that up front. But what I want to talk to you about, it's a provocative title, and there's a couple videos like this that are kind of a similar subject on dealing with negative people or negative things that you're going to run into. This one with the slant primarily is going to deal with first responders. My main experience has been with police, but a lot of these lessons and stuff could apply to EMS, to firemen, disaster relief, workers or anything else. Anybody that has to deal with difficult people in difficult circumstances as part of their profession. Um, you know, it. Everybody has to deal with negative people. In some ways, but this one particular, when you start talking about police officers, you're talking about a profession with one of, depending upon the geographical location, one of the highest rates of alcoholism, one of the highest rates of divorce, one of the highest rates of suicide. It's an extremely stressful job. Um, why did I call this How to Stop a Time Bomb? Well, because the simple fact is when a bomb goes off, not only does it destroy itself, but it destroys everything around it. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, and a little bit of advice on it. I work with police, all through the year. Sometimes, it's there in person. Sometimes, it's working on articles or programs or different things. Getting back to working with the public some. Developing programs, and I'll be honest, there's times that I'm working in dealing with certain issues. I get pissed off. Getting pissed off is normal. There's nothing wrong with getting pissed off. In the Bible, Jesus got pissed off at I believe it was the Pharisees for gambling in the church. And he was supposedly perfect. So a perfect person can get pissed off. Anybody can get pissed off. There's nothing innately wrong with that. But what you don't want to do is let it build. Bad things happen to people every day. I remember seeing an internet meme. I can't remember who posted it, and I can't remember the exact way that it went, but it was basically talking about healing. Healing doesn't mean that damage never took place. It just means that you don't continue to be damaged. And I think that's very true. And you have a lot of people in this profession that are broken, and they need to heal, and they're not healing. And they're getting broken way too easily. You see some nasty stuff. You see the worst of people. You absolutely see the worst of people. One thing I'd recommend is don't let that job consume you. Have other things that that are important to you, that can take you away from it. But I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Sorry, something kind of distracted me in the background. You can hear everything. I doubt you could hear it, but I can hear it. But I kind of want to lead off with that as I had a meeting probably about 3 years ago in Houston, Texas, with a retired police officer. He had actually retired with the CIA and then started working for HPD there, and then retired with, well, no, I don't think he retired with them. I think he went on to do something else after that and then retired. But he talked about when he was in the office, he had like this little saying framed, and it was actually a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. I can't remember which book it was from, but it was just, be careful in your pursuit of the monsters lest you become one. And that rings true today, now more than ever. You see a lot of bashing police, and then you see police letting that stuff get to them and bashing the public. And it just creates a vicious circle, getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it just builds and builds and builds. And the thing is, man, you can't let that get to you. First of all, you have to realize you are not your job. You're performing a function. If you let that thing consume you, and that's all you've got in your life, and you don't get any other things going, man, it's going to be the end of you. You cannot let these people get to you. I seen a thing with protesters, and yeah, I am going to veer off subject, but I swear I'll get right back around to it eventually. But there's a lot of things that go into this, and there's a lot of different ways that it can go. But there was some protest, I believe I think it was in Oakland, where somebody was provoking police officers and did something. Some guy did something to some people and got shot with a beanbag. He did it on purpose so the guy next to him could film it so he could post it on the internet and get attention for it. And people were posting a lot of nasty stuff about police and things like that. And the problem is, you go on police sites and you see comments from police officers going and looking at this stuff, and some of them guys sounded worse than the damn people that were bashing them, saying a lot of nasty things. Talking about protesters are scumbags and stuff like that. Well, they're not. A lot of them are misinformed. A lot of them aren't. It's just like, you've got good cops, you've got bad cops. You've got protesters that are doing stuff for the right reasons, and you got, that are decent people, and you've got, a bad element in there that's doing it. If you're a police officer and you're dealing with protesters, you're going to deal with some really ignorant people. There are, for example, I'll give you the main one that pops up, the First Amendment. You have these people that think the First Amendment was written specifically just for them and no one else. That no one else has any First Amendment rights or any rights at all. It's just about them personally and the First Amendment. It was written specifically just for them and them alone. Which, of course, as we know, is not true. But they'll, get in your face and and tell you about it. Think they can do things they can't. For two things that the First Amendment doesn't supersede, and I will tell you this: A, it doesn't supersede property rights. Property rights are, will trump the First Amendment every time in court. I promise you. Your First Amendment right does not override somebody's property rights. You can't go on someone's private property and tear their shit up and then claim First Amendment rights. But, they'll get in your face and they'll claim that they can. You cannot use your First Amendment rights to suppress or oppress and take away rights from another person. Because the simple fact that the First Amendment was written for everyone, then logic would dictate that there has to be limits on it. There has to be some type of a balance. We know that, but a lot of these people that you're going to be running into, don't, but they're going to swear to God they do. And, like I said, and I say this because, I want you guys to understand, you're not the only people that have to put up with that shit. You as a person, you're going to have other officers on your force feeling the same way. Officers all around the country have to put up with BS every day. So it's not like you're isolated, you're in a bubble, and, don't let things, personalize. Don't let it, basically turn you into a dick, for lack of a better term. I'll give you another example of some of the things. I want to explain this, analytically, because, there is like a scientific or mathematical, basis for it. Let's say over some amount of time, I hope it's not in a really short amount of time, when you work for one of these predatory departments, but let's say you do 10 traffic stops. And, realistically, this, number would be lower, but let's say 5 out of 10 people that you stopped were complete and total pricks. Just absolute, complete and total pieces of shit, terrible people. That doesn't give you the right to be a dick to the other 5 or to make an assumption about those people, before you walk up, and treat them. They could be good people and just had like a really, really bad day. It's like roulette. I go to the casino some, and I play roulette. Hadn't had a lot of luck lately, but I've done okay in the past. Um, and you always see people that like to bet the side bet, to bet black or red. And say if it hits like red like about 3 or 4 times in a row, then they're going to start betting black because they think, well, it's hit, red, the odds are it's got to hit black. No, they're not. It's the same 50-50 odds every single time. Each time the ball is dropped, it's the exact same odds. It could hit red infinitely and never hit black. I mean, most likely it's not going to, but the odds are the same. So you got just as much of a chance of coming up on a person who's a good guy, who's just speeding, and that has to pay a ticket, versus some asshole. So you can't make judgments or make assumptions about these people before you walk up. You're going to get complaints. It's good, in a department. I mean, that stuff. Eventually, it bites you in the ass. And that that same ideology, can be applied to other things. About getting complacent in your job. Just because nothing really bad happened yesterday, don't mean that it's not going to happen today. So you need to be diligent, in your training and everything, and be ready for whatever may come your way. You don't need to get complacent in your job. The same logic and mathematical formula could apply to that as well. But we all know that the public can be difficult. Um, and it's important, once again, to not personalize it. You can't let it personalize you. How can you? I mean, they don't even know you. All they know, even if they're getting pissed off at you and they're giving you a bunch of crap, they're not really mad at you. You know, they're mad at the situation. It's a way to deflect responsibility from themselves. In something they did. But in reality, when these people are pissed off, it ain't about you. It says more about them than it does you. So there's no need, to get angry about it. Plus, when you get angry, you can't think, and then you make mistakes, and so you don't need to do that either. Um, but man, there's some funky folks out there. Like I said, you see some of the worst. About 2 years ago, I live here in Alabama. We had a lot of tornadoes come through here. Killed people down in Tuscaloosa. Killed a lot of people up here outside of Huntsville, where I live. Did a lot of property damage. The next day, there was a huge run on gas. The largest metropolitan area in the state didn't have electricity. In the entire metropolitan area, did not have electricity for over 2 weeks. The nuclear facility here was hit by the tornadoes, and some damages were, some damage was done in the switch yard. It was really bad. Nobody had electricity. There was a huge run on gas the next morning. Things got real quick. I remember, trying to get something to eat the next day, and there was no food. And I happened to find a Subway. Was standing in line with a bunch of workers that had drove up to look for bodies. In a trailer court down the road, they pulled out about 14 dead bodies that morning, and it was rough, and there was a lot of nasty things going on. They had to have a curfew imposed because of looting fears. And things of that nature throughout the entire disaster zone, which was from Huntsville, like all the way down, like just past Birmingham, which is over 100 miles. There was a huge curfew, and so there was a lot of fighting and a lot of domestic disturbances, and and a lot of things, and things got ugly really quick. You see the worst of people. And even for those disaster relief people, pulling those bodies out. A few years earlier, we actually had a tornado come right through our home, right in, in our area, and did some damage to our roof here in this house. And down the road though, it hit a trailer park, just demolished it. I remember walking over there, and volunteering, and helping the responders look for dead bodies. in that wreckage because they just didn't have enough people. In any kind of disaster relief, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people. You've got to be compassionate. A lot of times you see such nasty things, you become desensitized to it. And, once you start doing that, it may be a situation where, you know what, you don't need to do this job forever. It's not good for your sanity. You need to maybe get out and do something else or take a break for a while. Um, this stuff happens. You'll see it. God forbid, we ever have a terrorist attack again. But in that kind of stuff, for example, like let's say there was like a sea burning event, which for the public watching this, which is good for the public to to hear this too, like a sea burning event, which is chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, or explosive. You're going to have a lot of pissed off people in the disaster zone because help's not getting there fast enough. And it could be a lot of reasons. First of all, for the public, help is never going to get there fast enough. People outside the disaster area, panic, and a lot of times, even though they're not in any danger, and jam roadways, trying to flee when they don't have to. That's one of the things, that you'll see. Another is a lot of times, first responders have to be careful because of the simple fact that a lot of times, in a terrorist attack, it's believed in a lot of cases there could be secondary explosives set specifically to kill first responders, to drive a body count up. And so they're going to be slower because they have to be careful that they themselves don't get killed. But people are going to be pissed off. You got to have compassion for that. I mean, these people are scared, they're nervous. You got to be compassionate. If you can't be compassionate for that, you need to do something else. Getting back to some other archetypes, that you may have to deal with. These people, I know my rights, kind of people, or which they obviously, don't. You have people screaming about laws which they don't have any knowledge of or anything else, like they think that's going to do any good. I mean, the simple fact is for the public out there, watching this, never, ever, ever argue with a police officer in the street. Never, 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 never do that. They have this thing called a court system that you can go to and you can argue all you want. But never, never, never argue with a police officer in the street because a police officer is not a judge. They can't make a decision about your guilt or innocence. They can make the accusation, but they can't decide guilt or innocence. So there's no reason to argue with a police officer in court. If you think they're wrong, on the street, if you think they're wrong, settle it in court. Let someone make the decision whose job it is to do that. You don't make that, and the officer doesn't make that either. All they do is enforce the law, and if they, see it, they think it's getting broke, then they try to do it. That gets like I said, more to the public. But it's something you should never do. Hold on, just a second. I saw in the background. Good Lord. Man. Dog back there getting just crumb, boy. Jesus Christ. It's like a rawhide or something. I don't know what the hell that is. Anyway. All right, come here. Hold on. Come here. Yeah. Gonna be on TV and cause a commotion. Let everybody see you. All right, you want to be famous? We'll make them famous. I'm just gonna hang around. All right, that's fine. Hey, when you're recording stuff, things happen. You know what? I'm not even gonna edit it out. We're all human. It's kind of a casual, video anyway. It's not like it's gonna be on television or something. But getting back to some of the other people, you have the, I know your rights people, and then you have people Um, they're, man, just a different animal altogether. Um, the internet's full of them. And, we'll talk, more about this. There's another article, they want to do that's just, general for like dealing with negative people. You have a lot of people that are going to come on and bash police and everything that are like conspiracy theory types. Um, wow. These people are a whole other breed. And they're really not any worse than a lot of the other ones, but in a way that they are, because they have this firm belief, in something that's probably bullshit. And I want to talk about them for just a sec, just to, kind of give a point of reference. Basically, you have in history there have been conspiracy theories that have been true. But the thing is that when you come out with millions and millions and millions of crazy things, mathematically some of them are bound to be true eventually. They really are. But that emboldens people more. And now with the internet, they actually have a voice, and they can put up whole websites with manufactured and misinformation, to bash police officers and provoke them, and and get them up to to do crazy shit. I know this sounds like I'm getting off subject, but really I'm not, because the police catch this from all areas. They catch it arguing with people in the street, or being a bunch of dicks. They catch it in the media. They catch it on the internet. Everywhere. Like I said, that's why they have such a high suicide rate, and and every damn thing else. But I want to talk about conspiracy theories for a second. You can't believe anything that you read on the internet. Let's put this in perspective. That you should have no expectation that anything you see in the media is true, ever, regardless of what the source is. It used to be believed that there was an FCC policy, against falsification, of news. That's not true. In 1997, there was a lady named Jane Acker, I believe. She's a reporter for Fox News. She was fired because she refused to falsify information in a report about this stuff that Monsanto created to some kind of steroid, I believe, but that was created by the Monsanto Corporation to cause cows to give more milk, basically. And she was asked to falsify something. What she was asked to falsify, I have no idea. But anyway, she refused to lie to the public on purpose and was fired for it. So she sued them. And originally she won. Eventually she ended up losing because the station she was fired from was in Tampa, Florida, and Tampa Bay, I guess. And an appellate court handed down a decision, basically in favor of Fox News. I think it was in 2004. That basically said that the FCC's policy against falsification of news was just that. It was just a policy, like a guideline. It wasn't a law or a rule. So that the media lying to the public on purpose is actually protected under the First Amendment. The whistleblower statute does not apply because people shouldn't have an expectation that anything that they see in the media is ever going to be true. That was actually handed down by a U.S. appellate court in Florida in 2004. Now, so you have your conspiracy people that use that and everything else. And I don't mean to single out Fox News. Fox News isn't any more guilty than any other news organization, whether it be Fox or CNN or MSNBC or any other news organization. And that's some good information for the public as well. Because you're going to have people that bash police. You know what? And sometimes there are bad things out there that police do. Sometimes police don't get the training they should. They do do some messed up stuff. And that those things should be reported. Because maybe Somebody will actually come up with the money for training. Um, if that stuff gets exposed enough. So it's not all bad, but there's a lot of other cops out there. There are a lot more good cops than there are bad cops, and it's messed up. When you see this stuff on the internet, where you have these alt news people. Um, promoting all this bad stuff about police, and then finally the police get pissed off, and they start the officers start posting stuff in the comment section, and what it does is it makes them look, it makes the media people look like they were correct in saying that all police are dicks, they're assholes, and all this other kind of stuff, because you get pissed off and you let your temper get the best of you, and you start going on there bashing these people. All you do is really just fall into their trap. So I would recommend for you guys, for you police out there, don't post on social media. Don't go to these weird alt news sites and try to engage these people, because it's exactly what they want you to do. The simple fact of the matter is, getting off subject a little bit. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I'll probably repeat it some other time. What I've learned, dealing with things in this particular arena, not every arena, but in this particular arena, the thing that people hate and despise most, when you're talking about information and transmitting information and getting it out there, the thing that people cannot stand the most is the honest to God truth. They hate truth. People do not want you to tell them the truth. What people want is validation. And there are going to be people who you're going to tell the truth. Well, they don't want that. They're going to go to somebody else because they want, their biases and agendas to be validated, so they can believe just whatever the hell they want. And the people are going to work to find it. The internet's made that very, very easy. You have different archetypes. This type of thing, really at the core, is where you get things like confirmation bias, where people decide they want to do research on something, and but they only get stuff that supports their belief, and they ignore everything else that disproves their belief. Or you get third person effect, where you get these kind of people who basically are like, they believe that they hold the truth, and that everyone that disagrees with them is gullible, and they need to open their eyes to the travesties and da-da-da that's going on, because they know the real truth. And the fact is that they're just as gullible as anybody else. They're just gullible in a different direction. What I compare it to is somebody, you get two piles of shit, and I hate to use that logic, but or use that example, but it really rings the point in. You get two piles of shit, and this pile of shit over here to the left has turned white, and you get people that are all about that white shit, and we'll say white shit is like mainstream media, okay. And then you got people who rail against that white shit, man. They don't like white shit. They like brown shit, or let's say alternative media. They like this brown shit. This brown shit's the shit, man. That other white shit, man, you can't do anything with that, Well, here's the fact of the matter. It's all shit. It's all shit. So, for the public going on alt news sites about people, where you see them bashing police, don't believe it unless you see an actual full video, not, something that someone's edited. Unless you can see a full unedited video, don't believe anything that you see. A perfect example of that was what happened at UC Davis. With the thing, where they made all the internet memes, the cop got fired, and then he got he's got his job back, basically, where, he looked like he just went and sprayed peaceful protesters. But then somebody posted the actual real video on the website that showed that, these protesters, some of them had altercations with the police who were trying to tear down tents and everything, and were getting arrested. And the other protesters basically blocked roadways kidnap police by technical, because anytime you go somewhere and you block an exit, you don't let somebody leave. Technically, by law, that's kidnapping. So they kidnap police and then ask to be sprayed. But if you don't see the full video, then you don't know that that's the truth. But alt media ran with a version that was edited just for them, just so they could put out there and they could lie to people. Um, so you get that kind of stuff, bashing police on the internet, and police, we're people, you know, we see this shit, we see it, and it makes us angry, it pisses us off, but you can't let it, you can't let it, because it's just shit. It's all it is. And you can't let shit bother you. One thing I would recommend, you know, find something else to do with your time off that's a lot different, than what you do with your time on. Me, I play guitar. When I go somewhere and I teach, I also like to, have like a day in the middle where like I'll go see something. This last time in Arizona, I went to the Grand Canyon. Get something, to get your mind off. Don't bring your family to work, and don't take work home with your family. I know that's easier said than done, but that's what you've got to do. You can't personalize things. You can't let what some numbnuts on the internet says bother you, and provoke you into making all police look bad, and going on a big rant and saying some crazy stuff. You can't let people that you stop who are assholes, or may temporarily have some psychological problems, some kind of disaster, turn you into an asshole. You can't do that. And you can't let this stuff build. You've got to get away from it sometimes, and you got to get time to heal. We talked about that earlier with the healing, damage, yada yada yada. But you've got to get away from it. Understand that you're kind of in a fraternity here, where a lot of people are going through what you're going through. Whatever you're going through, you're not going through it alone. Other people are going through it too. It sucks, but you're not alone. There's always other people that you can talk to. So that's what I'd recommend, and once again, you can't let that anger build. You can't let negative people who have nothing to lose take away everything in your life that you have to gain. And I don't necessarily mean that like for job promotions or something like that. I mean like your marriage, your relationship with your kids. Don't get despondent. Don't become withdrawn at home. Things like that. This is basically the point we're trying to make. You deal with difficult people. You deal with it today in more directions than you've ever dealt with it, and people, we understand. But this is what you've got to do, to make sure it doesn't drive you nuts, and that it doesn't turn you into a monster or someone that you don't want to be. So keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your head straight, and be safe. And we'll be back next week with another new episode. Have a good one.